I didn't plan to disappear. I only meant to breathe. But when the elevator doors closed behind me on the 38th floor of Hawthorne Risk Group, something inside me finally cracked. After 6 months of 18-hour days, red flag audits, and a boss who weaponized urgency, my vision blurred at the edges. The numbers on my screen, millions and projected losses, drowned me. And for the first time since joining the firm, I didn't care. I walked out, not dramatically, not with a resignation email typed in fury, just quietly. Like my soul had slipped ahead of me and waited by the exit. 3 hours later, I was driving through the mountains with no destination, no plan. Just the hum of the engine and the weight of exhaustion pressing into my bones. Snow clung to the pines like frosting, softening the world in a way my life never allowed. My resume sat folded in the passenger seat. A stupid thing to grab, maybe, but it was the only proof I'd built something worth respecting. The only piece of my life that felt like mine. I pulled into a diner near a small town called Brookhaven, a place so quiet it felt like a secret. Inside, the heat smelled like coffee and cinnamon. Old photos lined the walls. A waitress with silver hair called me sweetheart when she set down my mug. For the first time in months, I felt human, but peace never lasts for people like me. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Mason, my boyfriend of 3 years. Don't come back tonight. Doors changed. Then a photo followed. A new deadbolt. My breath froze. Another text pinged in. We talked to the landlord. It's all legal now. I stared at the device, heartbeat thundering, confusion and panic clawing at my ribs. Behind the messages was something worse, laughing emojis from my cousin Kira, who'd temporarily moved in last month and never left. I knew instantly this wasn't confusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was betrayal. And as if fate wanted to twist the knife, I reached into my bag for my resume, my lifeline, only to find the pocket empty. Somewhere in this diner, someone now held the last piece of my identity, and they knew my name. Mara drove back to the city long after the sun had set, the mountains shrinking in the rearview mirror as dread filled the empty spaces inside her. She didn't want answers, she needed them, and the only place to get them was the apartment she had paid for, maintained and practically rebuilt with her own hands. When she reached the building, everything felt wrong. Too quiet, too dark, too still. Her key slid into the lock and stopped. The deadbolt, new, shiny, deliberate, refused to turn. She knocked once, then again, harder. Footsteps shuffled inside. Kira opened the door, leaning her shoulder against the frame like it belonged to her. "Oh, you're back early," she said, smiling like she'd rehearsed it. Behind her, lights glowed warm, music played softly, and the smell of takeout filled the air. Her home, already being enjoyed without her. Mara swallowed hard. "Where's Mason?" Kira shrugged. "Shower. We changed the lock while you were gone." Gone. The word landed like a punch, as if taking one day to save her sanity justified throwing her life away. Mason appeared in the hallway, towel around his waist, hair dripping. Not surprised to see her, only annoyed. "You left," he said flatly. "We thought you weren't coming back." "One day," Mara whispered. "I was gone for 1 day. That's all it takes for people to show their true colors," Kira chimed in sweetly. "We're happier this way." Happier. The betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was planned, coordinated, finalized. Her name wasn't on the door anymore. Her resume was missing. Her life had been erased in her absence, and she realized with cold, slicing clarity, this wasn't abandonment. It was an eviction. An ambush. A takeover. And Mara Ellis had just become the stranger in her own home. Mara didn't remember the walk from her apartment door to the street. She only remembered the cold, the kind that seeped through her clothes and into her bones. The betrayal replayed in her mind like a broken recording. The change lock, Kira's smirk, Mason's indifference. Everything she had built had been taken in a single afternoon. Her backpack felt heavier than usual, though it carried nothing but her wallet, keys that no longer worked, and a folder, the one thing she grabbed without thinking during her stumbling exit, a folder containing her resume, portfolio samples, and the list of companies she dreamed of someday working for. Under the flickering street lamp, her hands trembled as she opened it. Empty. The resume wasn't inside. Panic shot through her. She dug through her bag again, then again, hands shaking harder with each pass. Gone. She remembered placing it on the coffee table before leaving for her retreat. She remembered Mason saying he'd look it over for her. And now she understood. Kira and Mason hadn't just stolen her home. They had stolen her future. The resume held everything: her references, her contact information, her best work samples. All the pieces of herself she'd sacrificed sleep and sanity to build. And now it was in their hands. Used? Destroyed? Mocked. Mara walked aimlessly, heart hammering, until a gust of wind slapped a paper against her leg. She picked it up on instinct, not paper, white linen cardstock. Embossed gold lettering, a business card, Leon Archer. Archer and Vale Enterprises, private line, one of the biggest tech investment firms in the country. A name people whispered about. A man who appeared in magazines beside CEOs twice his age. The kind of executive who didn't mingle with the public, not randomly, not accidentally. There was a handwritten note on the back. Found this on the hotel terrace. Impressive. Call me. Mara stared, breath freezing in her chest at hotel terrace. Then it hit her. The mountain retreat. The terrace where she'd sat writing, rewriting, formatting her resume while trying to hold herself together. She must have dropped a copy. Someone must have picked it up. Someone named Leon Archer, and for some possible reason, he thought she was worth contacting. Her phone buzzed, and no number. She hesitated, then answered. A deep voice, smooth and controlled, spoke on the other end. Ms. Ellis? This is Leon Archer. I believe I have something of yours. Mara nearly choked. My resume? And your portfolio? He added. Exceptional work. I'd like to meet. Tonight, if you're available. She turned, looking back at the apartment building that no longer belonged to her. The closed door. The betrayal worn inside. Her life shrinking behind it. Then she looked at the card in her hand. A door had slammed shut, but another, far bigger, had cracked open. Yes, she said. I'm available. And for the first time in a long time, Mara Ellis felt the faint spark of something returning. Possibility. Mara stepped into the penthouse suite of the Rice Hotel, feeling wildly out of place beneath crystal chandeliers and the hush of wealth that seemed to breathe in every corner. She expected Leon Archer, the powerful investor, the stranger who had found her resume, but the man waiting for her wasn't Leon. He was older, silver-haired, upright despite age. His presence filled the entire room with an authority that didn't need introduction. His eyes sharp, evaluating, lifted to her the moment she entered. You're punctual, he said softly. Your mother was too. Mara froze. Her mother. She hadn't heard anyone speak of her with that tone in years, not since before the accident. I'm sorry, she said, confused. Who are you? The man drew a breath, as if bracing himself for something long overdue. My name is Elias Vale. The name cracked through her like lightning. Vale. As in Vale Industries. The billion-dollar conglomerate. The family empire whispered about in every business article. Her feet turned to stone. He watched her reaction, then continued quietly. Your mother was my daughter. Mara's breath hitched. No, that's not. She never spoke of you. I know, Elias said, pain flickering in his voice. She left. I drove her away. His hands clasped tightly. His knuckles trembled. And I spent the last 25 years regretting it. Mara shook her head. Why now? Why me? Because Leon showed me your resume, Elias said. Showed me your work, your discipline, your talent. And then he showed me your name. His gaze softened, unexpectedly warm. I miss my daughter's life. I won't miss yours. Mara swallowed hard. The betrayal from Mason and Kira had left her hollow, but this revelation carved her open differently. Not pain, not fear, not possibility. Roots, a history she never knew she had. What do you want from me? She whispered. Nothing, Elias replied. Except the chance to make things right. To give you what you were stolen from. His voice deepened, trembling with sincerity. You are my heir, Mara, and you deserve far more than the life those people trapped you in. Her heart thudded in her chest. Heir, granddaughter, veil legacy. Her world had imploded, but maybe, just maybe, it was rebuilding into something far larger than she ever imagined. Mara sat across from Elias in the penthouse's private study, the skyline glittering behind him like a crown he'd worn for decades. She was still reeling from the truth, his truth, but Elias was already sliding a leather folder across the desk. Inside were documents, contracts, photos, screenshots, a timeline of everything Mason and Kira had done in the last 3 months. You already knew? Mara whispered. Elias nodded once. Leon traced the lock change, the bank transactions, the digital theft, and the identity fraud attempt. His voice sharpened. They didn't just violate your home. They used your resume to apply for jobs under your name. Mara's stomach twisted. Why? Why would they? Because parasites never understand value, Elias cut gently. They only sense opportunity. He tapped a page in the folder. Legal letters already drafted. I have a legal team preparing filings for unlawful eviction, identity theft, financial coercion, fraudulent use of personal documents, defamation attempt, and possibly, Elias narrowed his eyes, domestic sabotage. Mara blinked at him. I thought you said you wanted nothing from me. He smiled faintly. Wanting nothing doesn't mean I will tolerate anyone hurting my blood. The protectiveness in his tone was unlike anything she'd experienced in years. It didn't smother, it shielded. What do I have to do? She asked. Nothing, Elias replied. My attorneys will handle everything. Mason and Kira will be served papers within 48 hours. Her breath hitched. They stole your home, Elias said. So I will take theirs. His expression hardened into something unmistakably powerful, dangerous even, and if they dare to respond? Mara asked. Elias leaned back, voice dropping the steel. Then, granddaughter, we start the full war. 2 days later, Mara sat in Elias's private conference room, staring at the digital screen as Leon, the head of Elias's personal intelligence division, began his report. Mason and Kira's unlawful eviction was only the beginning. Leon clicked the remote. A new folder opened. A corporate logo appeared. Mara frowned. That's Ardentech. Yes, Leon said. The company where you applied last month? Her breath caught. She remembered the interview she never got. The sudden silence. The rejection email that felt too abrupt. Leon zoomed in on a series of emails. These were intercepted from a private server used by Kira's old boyfriend, who still works in Ardentech's HR division. The email chain was damning. Subject line, regarding my sister's application, do not hire. Attached note from Kira claiming Mara was mentally unstable, aggressive, and known to sabotage workplaces. A forwarded message from Mason adding fabricated incidents. To justify blacklisting her from multiple companies, Mara's hands trembled. They didn't just take my home. They destroyed my career. Elias's jaw tightened. the muscle in his temple pulsing like a warning signal. Keep watching. Leon clicked again. A second set of files loaded financial logs. 3 months ago, while living in your home, they accessed your laptop. We found traces of them entering your cloud folder. They transferred your entire portfolio onto a USB drive. Mara froze. No. She whispered, they sent your portfolio, Leon continued, to 2 companies as their own work. They even attempted to sell your proprietary process models. Mara felt sick. Her ideas, her years of work, her late-night drafts and early morning revisions. Stolen. Elias leaned forward, expression unreadable but terrifying in its calm. It gets worse, Leon said. They contacted Ardentech pretending to be you, attempting to withdraw your application so you would appear unprofessional. Mara felt cold spreading through her limbs. Every rejection suddenly made sense. Every silence. Every closed door. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't burnout. It was sabotage carried out by the 2 people who lived under her own roof. Leon switched to the last. Slide. Security footage. Mason and Kira laughing at her desk. Mason scrolling through her emails. Kira taking pictures of documents with her phone. Elias spoke softly, the softness somehow colder than rage. They didn't just try to keep you down. They tried to erase you. Mara pressed a hand over her mouth, fighting the burn behind her eyes. Why? Why would they do this? Because they thought you had nothing, Elias replied. And because people like them cannot comprehend a threat until it destroys them. He stood, tall and immovable, like a man accustomed to deciding the fate of entire empires. Leon, Elias ordered, prepare a corporate retaliation. File complaints with Ardentech's board, contact cybercrime investigators, and coordinate with the SEC. Mara blinked. The SEC? Yes, Elias said. Ardentech accepted stolen intellectual property. That makes this a regulatory matter. And I guarantee their CEO will cooperate once he understands who you are. Who I am. She asked, Elias's gaze soft for the first time. You are my granddaughter, he said. Which means you are no longer someone the world can silence. The words settled over her like armor heavy. Protective, powerful. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Mara felt something new rise in her. Chest. Not fear. Not anger, but certainty. Wasn't just revenge, this was reclamation. Zoe sat in the quiet of Elias's study long. After Leon finished his presentation, the betrayal, the sabotage, the stolen ideas, it all pressed on her chest, like a physical weight, but something else rose beneath it. Fire. Not the panicked. Scattered fire of survival, a clear, focused flame. Elias returned with 2 glasses of chilled water. You don't have to decide anything tonight. Zoe straightened. I already have. He raised an eyebrow. I'm done being the victim, she said. If Mason and Kira spent this much effort trying to destroy me, that means my work is worth fighting for. Elias's lips curved approval, sharp and subtle. Good, he said. Because I've arranged a meeting. With who? Ardentech's executive board. Zoe blinked. I'm meeting a company that rejected me? No, Elias corrected. You're meeting a company that unknowingly participated in a crime against you? She exhaled slowly. What do you want me to do? Tell your story, Elias replied. But not the emotional version. The strategic version. Show them the sabotage pattern. Show them what was stolen. Then he leaned back. Show them the ideas they nearly lost. Zoe hesitated. You want me to pitch? I want you to win, he said simply. The boardroom showed out 2 days later. Zoe entered Ardentech's gleaming boardroom wearing a suit borrowed from Elias's personal wardrobe, vault sleek charcoal. Subtle pinstripes, power stitched into every line. Executives whispered as she passed. Elias didn't introduce her as his granddaughter. He introduced her as the designer whose intellectual property your staff mishandled. Zoe stepped forward and connected her laptop. Slide by slide, she laid everything bare. Digital. Traces of Mason accessing her files, emails from Kira spreading lies, footage of them rifling through her desk, proof that Ardentech had unknowingly reviewed her stolen portfolio. Room fell silent. Then she ended the presentation with a new slide. What I plan to build next? She revealed her future design models, clean, innovative, bold. Ideas she had sketched at 2 a.m. on sleepless nights, never expecting anyone important to see them. The board members leaned forward. Captivated. Zoe realized something. Her trauma wasn't a weakness. It was insight. It was fuel. It was a blueprint for what she would create next. The CEO cleared his throat. Ms. Brennan, we'd like to offer you a contract. One that reflects your talent and respects your ownership. Zoe smiled, not a trembling smile, a victorious one, for the first time. She wasn't surviving. She was leading. Zoe barely had time to process the board's offer before a sharp voice cut through the room. Excuse me, what is going on here? Mason. He stood in the doorway wearing an ill-fitting suit, flanked by Kira, whose smile was strained and venomous. They had clearly not been invited, yet barged in anyway. The CEO frowned. This is a private meeting. That involves my department, Mason snapped. And my intern. He jabbed a finger at Zoe. She doesn't deserve this meeting. She cheated. Zoe exhaled slowly. Here it was, the inevitable tantrum. Mason stepped forward as if performing for an audience. She's getting special treatment because Elias Harper is in the room. Let's call this what it is, nepotism. Gasps rose around the boardroom. Zoe felt all eyes turn to her. Elias didn't move. Didn't speak. He simply watched her, testing her. Zoe stood. No, she said evenly. Let's call this what you did, Mason. With a click, she brought up her final slide, the one she hadn't shown the board yet. Security logs. File access timestamps. Camera footage of Mason copying her designs onto a portable drive. Kira's face drained of color. You sabotaged my career because you thought I was easy to break, Zoe continued. You lied to the board. You weaponized your position. And when it didn't work, you tried to hide behind your family name. There was a crack in the room, a shift of power. The CEO turned coldly toward Mason. Is this true? Mason spluttered. She's lying. She wants my job. You submitted a portfolio last quarter, the CEO interrupted. That looks suspiciously similar to what Ms. Brennan presented today. Silence. Mason floundered. She only got this chance because she's some rich man's granddaughter. Zoe lifted her chin. I didn't know who Elias was when I walked into this building, she said. He didn't give me this opportunity. Your betrayal did. Kira took a shaky step back, realizing the board's eyes were now fixed on her too. The CEO closed the folder in front of him. Security, he said. Escort Mr. Mason Harper and Miss Kira Lowell from the building. Effective immediately. As they were let out, Mason twisted around, shouting, This isn't over, Zoe. But Zoe didn't flinch. Because for the first time in her life, she held the power. The corporate fallout hit faster than Zoe expected. Within 24 hours. The internal audit team, activated by Elias before Zoe ever stepped into the building, released their findings to the board. And at the top of the report, highlighted in red, was a name Zoe hadn't expected to see again. Ruth Lowell, Kira's mother. The woman Zoe once called Aunt Ruth. The same woman who convinced Zoe to quit her last job. So Kira could take her place. The report laid everything bare. Ruth had funneled contracts toward Kira in exchange for kickbacks. She had buried applicants' resumes, including Zoe's, to keep opportunities in the family. She orchestrated the fake complaints that forced Zoe into HR scrutiny months earlier. And worse, she helped Mason steal Zoe's designs, planning to leak them to a competitor. The boardroom was packed when Ruth was summoned. She walked in with the confidence of someone used to controlling rooms. That confidence evaporated when she saw Elias seated at the head of the table and Zoe beside him. Calm and steady, Ruth Lowell, the CEO began. You are under investigation for corporate misconduct, nepotism, and sabotage. Ruth forced a smile. There must be some mistake. I've been loyal. Elias slid a folder across the table. Not loyal, he said quietly. Strategic. And very sloppy. Inside were emails, payment logs, screenshots of conversations between Ruth and Mason discussing how to get Zoe out of the way. Zoe watched Ruth pale. You undermined a rising talent, Elias continued. You stole, manipulated, and endangered the company. The CEO stood. Effective immediately, you are terminated. And the board will be forwarding the full case to state prosecutors. Ruth's mask shattered. This is a setup, she hissed. You're just doing this because she's your granddaughter. Zoe inhaled sharply, but Elias didn't even blink. No, he replied. I'm doing this because she earned her place, and you tried to destroy her for it. Security moved in. Ruth lunged toward Zoe. You owe me. I protected you your whole childhood. I gave you everything. Zoe stood tall. You gave me scraps, she said softly, and called it love. Ruth froze just long enough for security to escort her out. When the doors shut, the room exhaled. The CEO turned to Zoe. You exposed a network of corruption that's been poisoning this company for years. If you want the leadership development track, he paused, smiling. It's yours. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, not possessive, not controlling, proud. For the first time in her life, Zoe wasn't running, hiding, or fighting to be believed. She was exactly where she deserved to be, vindicated, seen, unstoppable. The building felt different when Zoe stepped outside later, as if the air itself recognized the shift in her life. For years, she had carried the weight of other people's control, Mason's cruelty, Kira's jealousy, Ruth's manipulation. Now, with the truth exposed and justice delivered, that weight finally lifted. Elias walked beside her in silence until they reached the courtyard fountain. You handled yourself well, he said. Better than many seasoned executives. Zoe smiled faintly. I didn't feel strong. I just couldn't let them win again. That is strength, Elias replied for a long moment. They simply stood there, not billionaire and newcomer, not a strange family, but two people linked by wounds and resilience. Zoe finally spoke what had weighed on her for weeks. Why did you really look for me? Elias exhaled slowly. Because I spent 30 years believing your mother, and I had no future, not realizing she'd hidden the fact that I did have one through you. I lost the first half of your life. I refused to lose the rest. Zoe's throat tightened, but she nodded. I don't promise easy. I don't even promise fast, but I'm willing to try. Elias's eyes softened. That's all I hope for. Later that evening, she drove back to the house Mason and Kira had tried to steal from her. The locks had been changed. The lights were warm. The space felt safe again. Zoe stepped inside, letting the silence wrap around her like a blanket. No shouting. No threats. No fear of what waited behind a closed door. Just her. Her work. Her future. She sat on the floor, leaning back against the wall. Listening to the quiet hum of a home finally returned to her. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was rebuilding after disaster. She felt like she was beginning, and this time no one would take it from her. At the heart of Zoe's story lies a truth that too many people learn the hard way. Family can wound you as deeply as it can shape you. And sometimes, the people who share your blood are the ones who fear your rise the most. Zoe's journey is not just a tale of betrayal and sabotage, it's a study in reclamation. She stepped out of a life defined by other people's expectations and into one built by her own courage. Every pushback, every manipulation, every attempt to shrink her only served as the friction that sharpened her resolve. Her real victory was not the corporate wins, the board recognition, or Ruth's downfall. It was something much quieter and far more powerful. Zoe learned to trust her own worth. She stopped apologizing for her ambition. She stopped shrinking to make toxic people comfortable. She stopped believing that loyalty meant tolerating abuse. And she discovered that strength is not loud, not vicious, not even perfect. Strength is the moment you stop asking for permission to exist. Ilias's re-entry into her life did not save her. It simply gave her a safer space to rise. Her power was always hers. Her voice was always hers. Her future was always hers. Zoe's story reminds us that boundaries are not walls. They are doors we control. And healing is not forgetting. It is choosing a better ending. One. Your worth is not defined by your family's treatment of you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from those who should protect you, but choose to harm you. Two. Loyalty without respect is servitude. You owe nothing to people who repeatedly sabotage your peace. Three. Your trauma can become your strategy. What was meant to break you can become the reason you rise. Four. And finally, never fear outgrowing the people who never wanted you to grow at all.